fundamental assumptions of mainstream economics is that consumers are rational. At the same time, it's rather obvious today that information asymmetry and higher relative market power is exploited by producers at markets with monopolistic competition in order to increase consumption of their products by altering their perceived value. Modern elaborate marketing techniques employ psychology to influence consumer preference. This raises serious doubts on the assumption of consumer rationality. Instead, many economists use the term quasi-rationality to describe modern consumer behavior. At the slide, you can see one of the simplest examples of quasi-rationality. This is Hares Youssef, the author of our concept. To the right is his correct picture. To the left is mirror reflection. We and other people that know them know this picture, like this picture more, whereas he himself likes this one and always prefers this one. From the economic point of view, the utility you derive from both pictures, if you believe in utility, or in any case, any value must be equal. Yet our brain prefers the things common to us to those less common. And this is example how repeated advertising alters consumer preferences. The cost associated with all these marketing efforts, me and my colleagues consider pure cost to society, as no real value is created, while additional costs are reflected in price. At the economy level, massive marketing results in fundamental distortions of value, which in turn lead to the severe exacerbations of imbalance between current path of global economy and sustainable. Human resources economic system addresses these imperfect information problems in a very direct manner by granting to consumers unlimited access to all the market information. This can be achieved by two measures. First, complete abolition of cash. Second, obligation of the producers of goods and suppliers of services to open all the information on their production and components on price, except in those protected by the patent law. Having a POS terminal and payment card integrated in his personal communication device, each person will be able to easily make and receive payments, as well as automatically obtain all the available information about the acquired goods and verify its authenticity if necessary. This is not only achievable by current state of technology, but already widely used for many goods and services we buy through the web. The United Nations Research Institute for Social Development 2010 report claims that inequality has risen, partly due to neoliberal economic policies that have made it difficult to achieve economic growth without inequality deepening. It is merely obvious that newly created wealth tends to become concentrated in the possession of already wealthy individuals or entities. This is nothing else as breaking of the Cousins curve. And the diagrams on the slide that illustrate wealth distribution dynamics, recent dynamics in US and China, respectively, illustrate this phenomenon empirically. The human and resource economic system suggests to address the problem of economical inequality deepening by the means of productive capital diffusion on the principles described by Louis Kelso in binary economics and those used in Islamic banking. By the former, we mean providing the employee stock ownership plans as mandatory for all enterprises. The latter I will address further. Adam Smith distinguished three sources of wealth: labor, capital, and land. To solve the problem of wealth condensation and economic inequality deepening, we should understand, in the first place, what the source of wealth is. Let's reconsider production factors from the scratch. To produce any good, we need raw materials, certain natural resource or combination of several, and labor, which is our only effort to transform available raw materials into a product. Our labor can be both physical and intellectual. While physical efforts are needed for direct processing of raw materials, intellectual efforts are necessary to determine or improve the way of such processing. Any capital, whether it's a spade, millstone, machine, is the product is the product of human labor applied to a certain combination of natural resources. As we can see, there are only two initial sources of wealth: the labor and the natural resources, or simply the human and the resource. Despite being a result of combining labor, every particular person's property, and natural resources, public property, today the products for a long time do not remain property of of neither every working person nor the society. This is because the agents that possess significant amounts of capital and financial assets obtain an ability of using these assets to create the virtually insurmountable barriers to enter their markets. These barriers can take a form of strategic oligopolistic behavior, but more generally they emerge with the existing system of price for the loaned capital, as well as with the existing system of credit risk management, with its strict collateral requirements. This system keeps the overwhelming majority of population away from possibility to start their own business and eventually to compete with incumbent market leaders. There are solutions to this. For example, Islamic banks lend their money to companies by issuing floating interest rate loans. Venture capital funding of an entrepreneur who provides labor is financed by the bank so that both profit and risk are shared. Such participatory arrangements between capital and labor reflect the view that the borrower must not bear all the risk or cost of a failure, resulting in a balanced distribution of income and not allowing the lender to monopolize the economy. Abolishing interest for loans purposing the non-consumer needs that can provide long-term productive efficiency increase and spreading of productive capacity, and eliminating strict collateral rules where the assets purchased on borrower funds are used as a guarantee and the non-repayment consequence is a record in borrower's credit history, are the measures essential to balance the capital excess capabilities for existing enterprises and ordinary people willing to start their own business and become a capital owner, which in essence is an economic environment competitiveness improvement. Here you can see the basic Keynesian cycle flow model adapted to the structure of human and resource economic system. The role of financial capital providers is partly played by the state, which provides zero interest loans, and partly by the national equity investment funds, private entities which operate with individual wealth by principles akin to Islamic banking. When we talk about the overexploitation of such natural resources as clean air, fresh water, and different ecosystems, we mean what economists used to call negative externalities. The contemporary economic approach is to internalize externalities. This means create a market, define the property rights, assume that people act rationally, and minimize the transaction costs, a so-called Coasian approach. But how can one imagine, for example, the market of fresh air, not mentioning the weakness of the assumption about people acting rationality, and the vague possibility of this particular case to minimize the transaction costs and define the property rights? The human and resource economic system proposes the sustainable approach to economic accounting based on and with respect to the principles widely described in ecological economics as natural capital should be definitely added to the typical capital asset analysis. Every economic transaction is a trade between human and nature. What we take from nature should be given back. This principle is outlined in the cradle-to-grave cost formula mentioned before. This approach provides clear and strong economic incentives to lower natural resources waste and cut negative externalities to efficient levels by making ecological efficiency a vital component of competitiveness. To establish the above-mentioned sustainable accounting principle, a full inventory of national wealth, mineral and fossil energy sources, ecosystem service capacities, and embodied energy of all the assets in terms of energy value is required. This work will result in formation of, how we called it, the energy reserve, which backs value of the new energy currency. As you can see, the considerable monetary reserve provides the government with funds necessary to implement the economic reforms and support private initiatives by zero-interest loans. A large part of this reserve will be used for social security program we call Life Unit. This will ensure demand for basic domestic goods and services and will be supported mainly by rents for resource usage. The reserve also works as a single account for national economy. It grows with aggregation of added value created by labor and reflected by markups and wages on the supply and demand side respectively. To conclude, the transition to human and resource economic system required three main reforms that could fix the impediments to efficient market functioning caused by insufficient attention from the mainstream economics. First, the reform of the monetary system will cease interest rates for loans meeting the capital acquisition needs and energy is going to become a peg and value guarantee for the new currency.